2021, a company was valued at $4 billion. By December 2021, just 8 months later, it was essentially worthless. Not declining, not struggling, not facing challenges. Worthless. As in, if you offered someone the entire company for free, they'd probably say no because the liability costs more than the assets. This is the story of Clubhouse, an audio-only social media app that went from the future of social networking to, remember that thing? Faster than any startup in Silicon Valley history. And before you think, well, it was probably a bad product, no. For about 6 glorious weeks in early 2021, Clubhouse was everywhere. Elon Musk was on it, Oprah was on it, Mark Zuckerberg joined to see what the fuss was about. Venture capitalists were literally begging the founders to take their money. Major news outlets were writing think pieces about how Clubhouse was revolutionizing human connection. Tech analysts were comparing it to early Facebook and Twitter. Everyone who couldn't get an invite felt like they were missing out on the digital equivalent of Studio 54. In February 2021, Clubhouse was the #1 app in 40 countries simultaneously. It had 10 million active users and was adding hundreds of thousands more every week. The waiting list for invites had over 5 million people on it. By December 2021, they'd lost 70% of their users. By mid-2022, nobody was talking about Clubhouse anymore except to use it as a punchline. By 2023, the app was averaging fewer users than a random podcast about medieval pottery. From 10 million weekly users to fewer than 300,000 in 18 months. From a $4 billion valuation to nobody even knows what it's worth now because nobody wants to buy it. This isn't just a startup failure. Startups fail all the time. This is the fastest, most complete evaporation of hype and value in modern tech history. Quibi took 2 years to die. Vine took 4 years. MySpace took a decade to become irrelevant. Clubhouse went from the next big thing to didn't that already die in less time than it takes most people to finish a Netflix series. Let me put this collapse in perspective because the numbers are genuinely staggering. In January 2021, Andreessen Horowitz, one of the most prestigious venture capital firms on the planet, invested in Clubhouse at a $1 billion valuation. Just 3 months later, they led another round at a $4 billion valuation. That's a 400% increase in 90 days. For context, Amazon took 6 years to quadruple its valuation. Facebook took 3 years. Clubhouse did it in a quarter. Andreessen Horowitz invested over $100 million total. Tiger Global threw in tens of millions. DST Global, the same fund that backed Facebook and Spotify, dumped money in. Over $310 million in total venture capital funding. Today, that $310 million is worth approximately nothing. The app still technically exists, but its value is essentially zero. It's not going public. It's not getting acquired, it's just there. A ghost ship floating in the App Store, haunted by the memories of when people cared. Let's compare this to other spectacular tech failures. Theranos took 15 years to collapse, but at least they committed actual fraud. That's effort. Clubhouse just made an audio app that people stopped wanting. WeWork burned through $47 billion in value, but it took them years and a genuinely unhinged CEO to accomplish it. Clubhouse did their speed run with 2 relatively normal founders. Quibi raised $1.75 billion and died in 6 months, but they were trying to launch a paid streaming service during a pandemic. They had an excuse. Clubhouse was perfect for the pandemic. People stuck at home wanting to talk to each other, and they still fumbled it. Clubhouse holds the record for the fastest death of a unicorn startup, a company valued over $1 billion, in the modern era. They speed ran startup failure like it was a competitive category. And here's what makes this story absolutely fascinating. This wasn't a scam. The founders weren't fraudsters. The product actually worked. People genuinely liked it for about 8 weeks. So what happened? How do you go from 10 million users and a $4 billion valuation to complete irrelevance before you've even had time to spend your Series B funding? Let's rewind to the beginning, because the story of Clubhouse's rise is just as absurd as its fall. There's a classic Silicon Valley playbook for manufacturing hype, and Clubhouse executed it perfectly, at least at first. Step 1. Make your product invite only. Gmail did this in 2004. Facebook did it in 2005, limited to college students. Even Google Plus tried it in 2011. The psychology is simple. People want what they can't have. Artificial scarcity creates perceived value. Clubhouse took this to an extreme. You couldn't just sign up. You needed an invite from an existing user, and each user only got 2 invites initially. 2 for your entire social network. The result, Twitter and LinkedIn became flooded with people literally begging for Clubhouse invites. Grown adults, many of them successful professionals, were publicly posting things like, "Does anyone have a Clubhouse invite? We'll trade expertise, advice, or money." Desperately seeking a Clubhouse invite. DMs open, please. If anyone has a spare Clubhouse invite, I will name my firstborn after you. Invites started selling on eBay for hundreds of dollars. At one point, Clubhouse invites were going for $400 to $600. People were paying half a month's phone bill for the privilege of accessing an app with no business model. Congratulations! For just $500, you can listen to strangers talk about entrepreneurship and wellness. Here's the thing. The invite-only strategy worked. It created massive FOMO. Everyone wanted in because they couldn't get in. The media was writing about Clubhouse constantly, which made more people want invites, which created more media coverage in a self-reinforcing hype cycle. But there's a dark side to artificial scarcity. Eventually, you have to open up. And when you do, the exclusivity disappears. The magic was never the product, it was the inability to access the product. Gmail remained invite-only for 3 years and built a waitlist of millions before opening up. Facebook took years to expand beyond colleges. Clubhouse started opening up after just 9 months. They had 9 months to figure out how to make people care about the product itself, not just the access to it. Spoiler, they did not figure it out. But before we get to the collapse, we need to talk about the peak. The glorious, insane moment in February 2021 when Clubhouse became the center of the internet universe. February 2021, the month Clubhouse broke through. On February 1st, 2021, Elon Musk joined Clubhouse. Not quietly, not subtly, he announced it on Twitter to his 40+ million followers and said he'd be doing a live conversation. 5,000 people immediately tried to join his room. Clubhouse's servers nearly melted. The app crashed repeatedly. People were refreshing, frantically trying to get in. It was digital chaos. Every tech publication covered it. CNN covered it. The New York Times covered it. People who had never heard of Clubhouse suddenly knew it as that app where Elon Musk talks. And then the floodgates opened. Oprah Winfrey joined. Drake joined. Kevin Hart joined. Tiffany Haddish was hosting rooms. Chris Rock was dropping into comedy discussions. Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, the largest social network on Earth, joined Clubhouse to see what the fuss was about. Let that sink in. The man who created Facebook was checking out the competition. That's like Coca-Cola's CEO stopping by a lemonade stand to see if it's a threat. Silicon Valley VCs were losing their minds. In their pitch meetings, they were probably saying things like, "Elon's on it, Oprah's on it, Zuckerberg is checking it out. We need to be in this deal." In January 2021, Clubhouse raised their Series B, $100 million at a $1 billion valuation. They'd gone from $100 million to $1 billion in 8 months. By April 2021, just 3 months later, they raised another round, $110 million at a $4 billion valuation. Let me do the math for you. April 2020, founded. May 2020, worth $100 million. January 2021, worth $1 billion. April 2021, worth $4 billion. They'd increased their valuation by 40x in 1 year with an app that had no revenue, was iPhone only, was still invite only, had no proven business model, was functionally just a conference call with extra steps. In February and March 2021, Clubhouse had achieved something remarkable. They'd become culturally relevant, not just in tech circles, everywhere. Your mom's book club was trying to get on Clubhouse. Local businesses were starting Clubhouse rooms. It was the conversation. By March 2021, 10 million weekly active users, 600,000 plus rooms created per day, people spending an average of 60 plus minutes per day in the app, N1 app in 40 plus countries. Tech analysts were writing things like, Clubhouse is redefining social networking. Audio-first social media is the future. This could be the next billion-user platform. Venture capitalists were saying, Clubhouse has the potential to be the next Facebook. We're seeing the birth of a new social media category. Audio is the untapped frontier. And then it all fell apart. Not gradually, not over years. In weeks, the wheels started coming off. By summer 2021, the death spiral had begun. By fall, it was essentially over. So what happened? Oh, where do I even start? The problems with Clubhouse weren't some mysterious black swan event. They were blindingly obvious to anyone actually using the app regularly. Let me walk you through them. Problem 1. There was no there. Once you got past the exclusivity and the celebrity moments, Clubhouse was kind of boring. The app was just chat rooms, voice-only chat rooms. The interface was a list of rooms you could join, organized by, well, not organized at all, really. Just a jumbled list of conversations happening right now. Finding quality content was nearly impossible. You'd scroll through dozens of rooms. Monday morning networking for entrepreneurs. Crypto discussion with Lisa and friends. Wellness Wednesday, finding your truth. Making 6 figures with real estate. The app became dominated by motivational speakers doing poor man's TED Talks, crypto bros shilling their latest schemes, entrepreneurs whose business was teaching entrepreneurship, self-help gurus giving generic advice, people trying to network their way to success. For every interesting conversation, there were 50 rooms of people talking just to hear themselves talk. It was LinkedIn if LinkedIn was even more insufferable and you had to listen to it in real time. Problem 2, the moderation nightmare. Clubhouse rooms could have thousands of people in them, all wanting to talk. The moderation tools were primitive at best. Room hosts were constantly dealing with people unmuting themselves and screaming, trolls derailing conversations, spam accounts promoting scams, harassment and hate speech. The app became plagued with anti-Semitic harassment campaigns, anti-Asian hate speech, misogynistic pickup artist rooms, conspiracy theories spreading unchecked, scammers running pump and dump schemes. Clubhouse's content moderation was almost non-existent. Conversations weren't recorded intentionally for privacy, so when someone reported harassment, there was often no way to verify it. The company was running a real-time audio social network with a moderation team sized for a podcast app. Problem 3, the time commitment problem. Here's the fundamental issue with live audio. It requires simultaneous participation. You can't catch up on Clubhouse the way you can scroll through Instagram at your own pace or watch YouTube videos when convenient. Interesting conversations might be happening at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, you're at work. 11 p.m. on Friday, you have plans. 8 a.m. on Sunday, you're sleeping. Miss it? Too bad, it's gone forever. Twitter, scroll whenever, catch up on what you missed. YouTube, watch videos on your schedule. TikTok, short videos, endless scroll, pause whenever. Clubhouse, be there live or miss it entirely. This created intense FOMO, which led to burnout. People were staying up until 3 a.m. in Clubhouse rooms because they might miss something important. It was unsustainable. Problem 4, no searchability, discoverability, or archive. Nothing was recorded, nothing was searchable, nothing was archived. Amazing conversations disappeared into the void the moment they ended. This meant no viral moments that could be shared, no clips that could spread on other platforms, no way for creators to build lasting content libraries, no SEO value, no way for creators to build sustainable audiences. Compare this to YouTube, videos live forever, can be monetized forever. TikTok, videos can go viral weeks after posting. Podcasts, episodes remain available permanently. Clubhouse conversations were ephemeral by design, which made them worthless for anyone trying to build an audience or career. But none of these problems alone killed Clubhouse. They were manageable, annoying, but manageable. What killed Clubhouse was simpler and more brutal. Everyone else copied them, did it better, and had billions of existing users. If you're a small startup with an innovative idea, there's one nightmare scenario that keeps you up at night. The big tech companies notice you, decide your idea is good, copy it, and integrate it into their existing platforms with billions of users. This is exactly what happened to Clubhouse. Twitter Spaces launched in November 2020, just 7 months after Clubhouse. Twitter looked at Clubhouse and said, audio chat rooms. That's literally just a feature. We can build that in a few months. And they did, and it was immediately better than Clubhouse in almost every way. Twitter Spaces had no invite required, anyone with Twitter could use it instantly, built-in audience, 330 million existing Twitter users, integration, Spaces connected directly to your Twitter followers and timeline, discoverability, Spaces appeared in your feed, not a separate app, recording options, hosts could record and share Spaces, and the kill shot, Twitter Spaces worked on both iPhone and Android from day one. Clubhouse was still iPhone only. Let me explain why this was devastating. Clubhouse's entire value proposition was exclusivity, but Twitter Spaces removed that exclusivity. Why beg for a Clubhouse invite when you could just use Twitter, which you already had? Remember all those celebrities on Clubhouse? They started hosting Twitter Spaces instead because they already had millions of Twitter followers. They didn't need to build a new audience. Their fans didn't need invites to join. It was just easier. By May 2021, Clubhouse had 10 million weekly users, starting to decline. Twitter Spaces had 30 million plus potential users, anyone with Twitter. Twitter didn't need to beat Clubhouse, they just needed to be good enough while having 30x more potential users. And Twitter wasn't alone. Once Twitter validated that audio social networking was worth doing, everyone piled in. Facebook Live Audio Rooms launched April 2021. Facebook had 2.8 billion users, existing groups infrastructure, the deepest pockets in tech, literally invented the social graph, and they looked at Clubhouse and said, "That's cute, watch this." Spotify Green Room, later rebranded to Spotify Live, launched June 2021. Spotify's pitch is audio is literally our entire business. We know audio better than anyone. Why would you use Clubhouse when Spotify can connect you with artists, podcasters, and millions of music fans? Discord Stage Channels launched March 2021. Discord already had 150 million users who were already using voice chat constantly. They just added a stage feature for large broadcasts. No new app needed. LinkedIn Audio Events launched March 2021. LinkedIn's angle is professional networking is our thing. Why would you network on Clubhouse when your actual professional network is already on LinkedIn? Reddit Talk launched April 2021. Reddit communities already had millions of engaged users. Adding live audio was trivial. Telegram Voice Chats 2.0 launched March 2021. Telegram upgraded their existing voice chat features specifically to compete with Clubhouse. Let me show you what Clubhouse was up against. Clubhouse, 10 million users, iPhone only, invite only, no established social graph, no revenue, 2 founders and a small team, 1 feature, audio rooms. The competition, Facebook, 2.8 billion users, unlimited resources. Twitter, 330 million users, established platform. Discord, 150 million users, already using voice chat. Spotify, 345 million users, audio expertise. LinkedIn, 740 million users, professional network. Reddit, 430 million users, community infrastructure. This wasn't David versus Goliath. This was David versus 6 Goliaths, and David's only weapon was artificial scarcity and hype. And here's what happened. March 2021, Clubhouse hits 10 million weekly users, peak. April 2021, Twitter Spaces goes mainstream, Clubhouse stalls. May 2021, Clubhouse finally launches on Android, too late. July 2021, Clubhouse loses 2 million weekly users in 1 month.
August 2021, down to 4 million weekly users. September 2021, down to 3 million weekly users. They lost 70% of their users in 6 months. For context, when MySpace declined, it took 3 years to lose 70% of users. Clubhouse did it in half a year. Why did users leave so fast? Convenience. Why use a separate app when Twitter, Discord, or Facebook already worked? Network effects. Your friends were probably on Twitter, not Clubhouse. Switching costs were zero. Nothing locked you into Clubhouse. No content library, no permanent profile. You could just stop opening the app. Novelty it wore off. Once the exclusivity disappeared, it was just conference calls. Better features elsewhere. Competition actually listened to user feedback and improved faster. Clubhouse spent a year being artificially exclusive, then opened up right when 6 massive platforms offered the same thing with better distribution. It's like spending a year hyping up your exclusive lemonade stand, then opening right when McDonald's, Starbucks, and Coca-Cola all started serving lemonade.
Let's talk about one of Clubhouse's most baffling strategic mistakes: taking over a year to launch on Android. Here's a fun fact. Android has 70% global market share. In the US, it's about 50-50, but globally, Android dominates. Clubhouse launched in April 2020. They finally released an Android app in May 2021. That's 13 months of being iPhone only. During those 13 months, they missed out on 70% of potential users globally. Android users felt excluded and resentful. Competition launched on both platforms simultaneously. The hype cycle peaked and crashed without Android users participating. The founders claimed they wanted to get it right and perfect the iOS experience. Cool. You spent 13 months perfecting an app that listed voice chat rooms. Revolutionary engineering challenge there. Here's what actually happened. Building for both iOS and Android simultaneously is harder than building for just one platform. It requires more developers, more testing, more coordination. Clubhouse was a small team that wanted to move fast, so they chose iOS first because that's where the wealthy, tech-savvy early adopters were. Building for one platform is faster, and iPhone users spend more on apps if they ever added monetization. This is classic short-term thinking. They optimized for speed during the hype phase without considering what happens when the hype fades. When Twitter Spaces, Facebook Live Audio, and Discord Stage channels all launched on both iOS and Android simultaneously, Clubhouse's iPhone-only strategy became an enormous liability. When Clubhouse finally launched on Android in May 2021, the reaction was, "Oh, cool, that app from 3 months ago is finally available? Anyway, I'm already using Twitter Spaces." They'd missed their window. The momentum was gone. Android users had moved on before they even got access. The Android app got 1 million downloads in the first week. Seemed promising. Then engagement cratered immediately because most of their friends were on other platforms now. The rooms were emptier, the buzz had faded. Why bother learning a new app? The Android launch was supposed to be their second act. Instead, it was more like showing up to a party 3 hours after everyone left. But wait, it gets even sadder. Let's talk about what happened when Clubhouse realized they were dying.
By summer 2021, Clubhouse was in full panic mode. Users were fleeing. Competition was crushing them. Investors were getting nervous about their $4 billion valuation looking increasingly absurd. So they did what dying startups always do. They started throwing features at the wall, hoping something would stick. June 2021, Clubhouse Payments. They added a way for users to tip creators directly. Finally, monetization. Except the creators were already leaving for platforms with actual audiences. Twitter Spaces added tipping too. Spotify had Spotify Premium. Creators had better options. July 2021. Clips. Remember how everything being ephemeral was Clubhouse's thing? They abandoned that. Now you could record 30-second clips from rooms and share them. This was like if Twitter introduced long-form content in 2022 to compete with Substack. Yeah, you can add the feature, but you've already lost the positioning battle. August 2021. Universal search. They finally added the ability to search for topics and people, a feature that should have existed from day one. It's like launching a library without a card catalog, then adding one a year later after everyone stopped visiting. September 2021, spatial audio. They added spatial audio so voices sounded like they were coming from different directions. Cool tech, completely irrelevant to why people were leaving. This is like renovating the deck chairs on the Titanic. Sure, they look nicer, but the ship is still sinking. October 2021, replays. They added the ability to record entire rooms and replay them later. So now they were basically a worse version of podcasts? Do you see what was happening? Clubhouse was desperately trying to become every other platform at once. They started as ephemeral live audio only, their unique positioning. Then they added recordings, now competing with podcasts, clips, now competing with short-form video, tipping, now competing with Patreon or OnlyFans, etc., search, what everyone else already had. They'd lost their identity entirely. They weren't the live audio app anymore. They were the app that used to be cool but is now trying to copy everyone else's features. While Clubhouse was flailing on product strategy, their messaging became increasingly desperate and incoherent. Early 2021 messaging is Clubhouse where you can talk about anything with anyone, the future of social networking, where conversations happen. Summer 2021 messaging, a place for casual drop-in conversations, audio-first social network, where communities come together. Fall 2021 messaging, the best way to connect with creators, audio town halls, live podcasting platform, social audio experience, community-driven conversations. They were throwing buzzwords at a dartboard: community, creators, social, audio, live, experience, platform. The real problem? They didn't know what they were anymore. Were they a social network? But Twitter and Facebook were bigger. A content platform? But YouTube and Spotify were better. A creator tool? But Patreon and Substack had actual monetization. A live event platform? But Zoom existed. A professional network? But LinkedIn had all the professionals. They tried to be everything, which meant they were nothing specific. And in tech, if you're not specifically solving a clear problem better than alternatives, you're dead.
By late 2021 and early 2022, the writing was on the wall. Clubhouse was dying. Investors knew it, the founders knew it, the employees definitely knew it. April 2022, first reset. Clubhouse laid off 50% of their staff. Not 10%, not 25%, half. The announcement called it a reset to refocus on core features. Translation, we're running out of money and nobody wants to fund us anymore. The $4 billion valuation was now a sick joke. Companies considering acquisition were offering $100 to $200 million, a 95% decline in value in just 1 year. And even at those prices, nobody wanted to buy them. Why would someone buy Clubhouse in 2022? The users were gone, the technology wasn't special, proven by how easily everyone copied it, the brand was associated with failure, the competition had better versions integrated into bigger platforms, there was no IP worth protecting, the team had already been gutted. The only acquisition scenario that made sense was an acqui-hire, buying the company just to hire the engineers and shut everything else down. But even that wasn't appealing. The Clubhouse team had just demonstrated they couldn't build a sustainable product or compete effectively. Not exactly the most attractive hire. The founders faced a brutal choice. Option 1, shut it down. Admit complete failure, disappoint investors who'd put in $310 million, become a cautionary tale, and move on to their next venture. Option 2, keep it alive. Keep burning money maintaining servers. Pretend there's still hope. Maybe catch a miracle wave. Die slowly instead of quickly. They chose option 2. Clubhouse still exists as of 2024, technically. The app still functions, rooms still happen, but with fewer than 300,000 weekly active users, down from 10 million, no press coverage, no cultural relevance, no path to profitability, no acquisition interest. They've become a zombie company, technically alive but functionally dead, walking but not living. The app exists in maintenance mode, bleeding whatever's left of their funding, waiting for what exactly? Nobody knows. So, what can we learn from this absolutely spectacular failure? Because Clubhouse didn't just fail,
They failed in ways that teach us volumes about tech, startups, hype, and human psychology.
Lesson 1. Hype is not a business model. Let's start with the most obvious lesson that Silicon Valley refuses to learn. Hype is not a business model. At its peak, when Clubhouse was valued at $4 billion, do you know what their annual revenue was? $0. 0.0. They had no revenue model, no subscriptions, no ads, no premium features, nothing. They were burning venture capital to run servers while planning to figure out monetization later. This is Silicon Valley's favorite delusion. Build an audience first, monetize later. Sometimes it works. YouTube, Instagram. Usually it doesn't. Vine, Meerkat, Periscope, now Clubhouse. The theory is get enough users, create network effects, then you can monetize easily because users are locked in. The problem, Clubhouse had no lock-in, no content library keeping you there, no social graph you couldn't replicate elsewhere, no unique data or insights. You could leave any time with zero switching cost. Platforms with strong lock-in, Facebook, your entire social graph, 15 years of photos and memories. Gmail, your email history, contacts, integrations. iPhone, your apps, iCloud data, ecosystem integration. YouTube, subscriptions, playlists, watch history, creators you follow. Clubhouse's lock-in? A list of people you follow? That's it? There was nothing keeping you on Clubhouse except FOMO and momentum. Once the FOMO faded and momentum died, users left instantly. And yet, investors valued them at $4 billion despite no revenue, no clear path to revenue, no lock-in, no defensible moat, no proprietary technology, easy to copy as proven by everyone copying them. This is greater fool investing, buying something not because it's worth the price, but because you think you can sell it to a greater fool at an even higher price. Andreessen Horowitz bought at $1 million, hoping to sell via IPO at $10 billion. They were betting on hype perpetuating itself indefinitely. But hype is temporary, always. It's a sugar rush, not sustainable energy, and when it fades, you'd better have something real underneath. Clubhouse didn't. Lesson 2. Timing is everything, and temporary. Clubhouse had perfect timing, which became catastrophically bad timing. March 2020, pandemic hits, everyone locked down. April 2020, Clubhouse launches. April 2020 through March 2021, perfect product market fit. During lockdown, Clubhouse was perfect. People stuck at home wanting human connection, Zoom fatigue making audio only appealing, no competing events or real-life obligations, desperate for novel entertainment. Spring-summer 2021, vaccines roll out, lockdowns end, people's behavior return to normal life. Suddenly, Clubhouse wasn't convenient anymore. People had real in-person events to attend, less free time sitting at home, less tolerance for 2-hour live audio sessions, better things to do than network with strangers online. Clubhouse mistook a pandemic-specific behavior pattern for a permanent shift in human behavior. They thought audio-first social networking is the future. Reality, audio-first social networking was convenient during lockdown when we had nothing else to do. They weren't alone in this mistake. Peloton, home fitness seemed permanent, then gyms reopened. Zoom, remote work seemed permanent, then return to office happened. DoorDash and Uber Eats, deliveries seemed permanent, then people started eating out again. Some pandemic behaviors were permanent. Hybrid work, partially stuck. Online shopping acceleration, mostly stuck. Telemedicine adoption, partially stuck. But real-time social audio, that was a temporary pandemic-specific behavior, not a lasting societal shift. Clubhouse's fatal mistake. They raised $310 million and built a company based on temporary pandemic behavior, betting it would last forever. It didn't. Lesson 3. Features versus platforms.
Here's a brutal truth that destroys many startups. Your entire product is someone else's feature. Clubhouse's entire value proposition was live audio chat rooms. That's it. That's the whole app. It's a feature, a single feature trying to be an entire platform. And guess what? Twitter added it as a feature. Facebook added it as a feature. Discord added it as a feature. Telegram added it as a feature. They all built Clubhouse in a few months as a side project while maintaining their core platforms. And by integrating audio rooms into existing platforms, they made standalone Clubhouse obsolete. Why download a separate app for audio chat when Twitter already has it? Why build a new network when Discord already has your gaming friends? Why join Clubhouse when Facebook has your actual friends and family? This happened before. Meerkat, live streaming app, killed when Twitter bought Periscope. House Party, video chat app, killed when Zoom added social features. Snapchat Stories, copied by Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp. Vine, 6-second videos, killed when Instagram added Reels. The pattern: startup creates innovative feature disguised as platform. Users love it, early growth. Big tech notices, copies it. Big tech's distribution and existing network effects win. Startup dies or gets acqui-hired. Actual platforms have network effects that compound over time. Data and content moats, your history, your creations. Multiple interconnected features creating stickiness. Proprietary technology that's hard to replicate. Established brand identity and cultural positioning. Clubhouse had one feature, audio rooms, no content permanence, no proprietary tech, weak network effects, easy to rebuild elsewhere, brand identity based on exclusivity, which disappeared. When your entire company is a feature, you're at the mercy of platform companies deciding whether to copy you or acquire you. Clubhouse was too expensive to acquire, $4 billion valuation made no sense, and too easy to copy. Everyone did it in months. They fell into the worst possible gap. Too big to acquire, too simple to defend.
So where's Clubhouse today, as at late 2024? Status: 250,000 to 300,000 weekly active users, down 97% from peak. No recent funding rounds, investors have written it off. Minimal press coverage, only as cautionary tale. Still technically operating, zombie mode. No acquisition interest, founders have gone quiet publicly. App Store rankings currently ranks 500 to 800 in social networking. For context, it was number 1 in 40 countries in early 2021. Downloads have cratered to negligible levels. Who's still using it? Small niche communities who found value there, people who genuinely prefer audio-only format, communities built before the collapse who haven't migrated, die-hard fans refusing to admit it's over. Paul Davison and Rohan Seth have largely disappeared from public view. No major interviews, no new products announced, no triumphant pivot narrative. They're probably having some very uncomfortable conversations with investors who put in $310 million. Andreessen Horowitz rarely mentions Clubhouse anymore. It's become the investment they'd rather forget, a reminder that even prestigious VCs can get caught in hype cycles and massively overvalue companies. The employees who survived the layoffs are probably updating their LinkedIn frantically, trying to spin "worked at Clubhouse" into something that sounds like valuable experience rather than "I was on a sinking ship." So, what should you take away from Clubhouse's spectacular implosion? 1. Exclusivity is a marketing tactic, not a business model. Artificial scarcity works for hype generation. It's terrible for sustainable growth. Eventually, you have to open up, and when you do, the magic disappears if the product wasn't actually magic. 2. If your product is easy to copy, assume it will be copied. If massive tech companies can replicate your entire product in months, you don't have a defensible business. You have a temporary head start at best. 3.
Features disguised as platforms die when platforms add those features. Ask yourself, is my company's core product something that Twitter, Facebook, or Google could add as a feature update? If yes, prepare accordingly, have a real moat, sell quickly, or accept eventual death. 4. Pandemic behaviors, not permanent behaviors. Be extremely cautious about raising massive amounts of money based on pandemic-specific usage patterns. Temporary convenience is not product-market fit. 5. Valuations based on pure hype eventually correct to reality. $4 billion for an app with zero revenue, no proprietary tech, and easily replicatable features was always insane. The market eventually corrects hype-driven valuations brutally. 6. No revenue equals no leverage equals no survival. Without revenue, you're entirely dependent on continued investor funding. When growth stalls, funding dries up, and you have no plan B. 7. Cultural moments are temporary. Products must be permanent. Clubhouse captured a cultural moment perfectly, but cultural moments pass. Your product needs utility that outlasts the hype. 8. Network effects only matter if there's lock-in. Having users is meaningless if they can leave anytime with zero friction. Build mechanisms that make leaving painful. Content libraries, social graphs, data, integrations. But the ultimate lesson from Clubhouse's collapse is simpler and more profound. The difference between a $4 billion company and a worthless one is measured in months if your foundation is hype rather than value. Clubhouse went from the future of social networking to a punchline in less time than most people finish a season of television. They raised $310 million. They reached 10 million users. They were valued at $4 billion. Celebrities joined, the media obsessed over them, and then, almost overnight, it was over. 8 months. That's how long it took to go from peak valuation to irrelevance. 8 months to burn through billions in perceived value. 8 months to go from the next Facebook to, remember that audio app thing? In the startup world, they call this failing fast. Clubhouse just failed faster than anyone thought possible.
If you enjoyed watching the fastest startup implosion in tech history, you'll love these other corporate collapse documentaries. Quibi, how $1.75 billion bought absolutely nothing. WeWork, when $47 billion vanished in 6 weeks. Theranos, the blood test that could kill you. Subscribe for more stories of spectacular failures, because learning from other people's mistakes is way cheaper than making them yourself. Thank you for watching Rise&Reckonings TV, where we dissect the disasters so you don't have to live them.